Notice the person at the table who never once looks at the check before reaching for it. Not because they're careless, because the number stopped being interesting to them a long time ago. That's not a personality trait. That's a symptom. And once you know what to look for, you can spot it on almost anyone, regardless of what car they drive or what job title sits on their business card. Here's the confusion almost everyone carries around without realizing it. We treat income and wealth as the same thing, and they are not remotely related. Income is what lands in your account. Wealth is what's still standing after everything else has taken its bite. You can earn an enormous amount and end every single month with nothing left. And plenty of people do exactly that, quietly, for their entire working lives. Meanwhile, someone earning a modest, unremarkable salary can end up sitting on more real wealth than almost anyone they know, simply by doing a handful of quiet things consistently for decades without ever announcing it. So today we're going through 10 signs that actually separate people with real financial security from people who just look like they have it. Not lifestyle signals, behavioral ones. The kind that show up in the small, boring decisions nobody posts online. Number 1. Their money has a job before they ever see it. Most people save whatever happens to be left over at the end of the month, and the uncomfortable truth is there's almost never anything left. People who build real wealth flip that order completely. The moment income arrives, a portion is already gone, moved automatically into savings and investments before it can be casually spent on something else. They don't decide to save each month. They decided once and built a system that repeats the decision for them forever. This matters more than it sounds like it should, because of something economists call decision fatigue. Every choice you make throughout a day pulls from the same limited pool of mental energy, and by the time payday money is sitting in a checking account you can freely access, you've already made dozens of small decisions that quietly erode your resistance. A system that removes the decision entirely doesn't rely on willpower at all. It just runs. Think of Renata, a hospital administrator who has never once considered herself disciplined with money. She set up an automatic transfer the week she got her first real job and never touched the settings again. 15 years later, she was stunned to discover her retirement account had quietly outgrown her own understanding of what a lot of money even meant. Nothing dramatic happened. The system simply never stopped running. Number 2. A financial emergency registers as an inconvenience, not a crisis. Watch how someone reacts the moment something breaks, because that reaction tells you almost everything. The car needs an unexpected repair. A pipe bursts. A pet needs emergency surgery on a random Tuesday. For most households, that moment triggers real panic, because a large share of people cannot cover even a modest surprise expense without going into debt to do it. People with real financial footing barely blink. They keep a dedicated cushion, usually enough to cover several months of essential expenses, sitting somewhere boring and untouched, earning a bit of interest while it waits for a day it's actually needed. The number itself isn't the point. The point is what that number removes, the low-grade dread that follows anyone living one bad week away from real trouble. Number 3. They think in net worth, never in salary. Ask most people how they're doing financially, and they'll answer with a number attached to their job. This is what I make. This was my last raise. Ask someone who has actually built wealth the same question, and they think in a completely different unit entirely, what they own, minus what they owe. That's the only number that has ever told the truth. Income is water pouring into a tub. Net worth is what's still in the tub after everything drains back out through bills, debt, and lifestyle. You can pour an enormous amount of water into a tub with a hole in it and still end up with nothing at the end of the year. The people who track what they keep are the ones who end up keeping more of it, almost as a side effect of simply watching the right number. Number 4. Their assets work shifts they never personally clock into. This is the quiet difference between looking wealthy and being wealthy, and it is nearly invisible from the outside. Someone trading hours directly for dollars, no matter how many dollars per hour, watches the income stop the instant they stop working. Someone with real financial footing has built the opposite arrangement. Money sitting somewhere that keeps generating more money on its own, at 2 in the morning, on a holiday, whether or not they're paying any attention to it at all. This is what people mean when they talk about their money working for them, and the phrase undersells how unglamorous the process usually is. It's rarely one clever investment. It's usually years of ordinary, repeated contributions into something boring, left alone long enough to compound. Dion, a machine technician who never earned a six-figure salary in his life, spent 2 decades quietly funneling every raise into a simple portfolio instead of upgrading his lifestyle to match his income. By his late 50s, what that portfolio generated in a typical year had quietly surpassed his actual paycheck. Nobody at his job ever knew. Number 5. The car in the driveway is boring, deliberately. This is where people get fooled the hardest, because we've all been trained to read an expensive car as evidence of real money. Often, it's closer to the opposite. A large, ordinary vehicle purchased with a long loan and a steep monthly payment is one of the most common ways people quietly bleed out their future wealth in exchange for a signal that impresses people who, statistically, are usually struggling with the exact same thing. Run the comparison people with real financial footing tend to run instinctively. Take a typical car payment and imagine investing that same amount every month instead for 30 years. It grows into a genuinely enormous number, simply because you let time do the heavy lifting instead of a depreciating object sitting in a driveway. The unremarkable car isn't a lack of taste. It's a decision, made once, that quietly funds everything else on this list. Number 6. Debt gets treated like a leak in the boat, not a normal part of life. Carrying a revolving balance at a steep interest rate is one of the most reliable ways to guarantee you stay a step behind, no matter how much you earn. Every dollar paid in interest is a dollar that will never grow for you again in either direction. People with real financial footing use credit constantly for convenience and rewards, but the balance returns to zero the moment the statement arrives, without exception. The card becomes a tool that works for them instead of quietly working against them in the background of their entire financial life. Number 7. Saying no doesn't require an explanation. This sign is easy to miss because it looks like nothing happening at all. It's the friend who skips the expensive trip without a hint of embarrassment. The coworker who brings lunch from home 3 days a week and never once feels the need to justify it. The person who hears about the incredible deal, the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and simply, calmly, declines. That gap between what someone earns and what they actually spend isn't luck. It's protected on purpose, through 100 small refusals nobody ever sees, because performing wealth for an audience and actually building it tend to pull in opposite directions. Number 8. Investing looks aggressively unimpressive. There's a persistent story that people build wealth by picking the right stock at the right moment. The actual pattern looks almost nothing like that. It usually looks like ordinary, repeated contributions into something broad and low cost, added to on a fixed schedule, month after month, regardless of headlines. Then comes the hardest skill in the entire process, doing absolutely nothing. Through downturns, through panic, through every confident voice insisting this time is different, the money simply stays invested and the years do the rest. The people chasing the exciting trade tend to have the loudest stories and, more often than not, surprisingly empty accounts. The people quietly building real wealth made peace with slow a long time ago. Number 9. Time gets purchased back long before objects do. Ask someone with genuine financial security what their money is actually for, and the honest answer is rarely a bigger house or a nicer watch. The answer, more often, is time. The ability to leave a job that no longer fits. To take an ordinary Tuesday off without calculating the cost in their head. Past a certain point, money stops being about acquiring more and starts being about removing friction. The late fees, the overdraft anxiety, the quiet hum of dread that follows anyone one bad month away from real trouble. Camille built a small consulting practice over 12 years, and the moment her investments could reliably cover her family's core expenses, she didn't buy anything new at all. She cut her own work week down and started actually being present for the parts of her life she'd been quietly missing. That particular flex never gets posted anywhere because it can't be photographed. But if you watch closely, you can see it in how unhurried certain people are with their own days. Number 10. They can describe their number without hesitating, but they will not tell you their salary. Most people answer a question about how they're doing financially with a figure tied to their job. Someone who has actually built wealth answers with a completely different figure. one they can usually estimate within a few $1,000s at almost any given moment, because it's the only number that has ever genuinely mattered to their actual security. The people who obsessively track what they keep tend to end up keeping more of it. The people fixated only on what they earn tend to watch it flow back out the door, year after year, quietly wondering where it all went. So look again at the person at that table, the one who never checked the price before ordering, the one who reached for the check without a flicker of hesitation. Their calm was never a personality trait. It's the slow, compounding result of a cushion that turns emergencies into errands, a boring car, a zero balance, an easy no, time bought back on purpose, savings that move without being asked, and a clear focus on what they keep instead of what they earn. None of it is loud. None of it was ever built for an audience. That's precisely why it works. Real financial security was never the number printed on a paycheck. It's the distance between what comes in and what actually stays, and the quiet freedom that gap eventually buys back. If you recognized yourself in even 2 or 3 of these, you're closer than you think. And if you recognize someone else entirely, that's worth paying attention to as well.